I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everyone. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, something like that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, staff presentation and information, Dr. Mannon.
Mr. Schlegel, who is here, and we're going to present the Y and C and T and U first quarterly construction update. Mr. Schlegel.
Thank you, Dr. Mannon. Good evening, President Lee, esteemed board members, district cabinet members, Jorge, and our design team and construction team that's in the house, and to the thousands of Torrance residents. We will provide you an update tonight on Y, Z, T, and U bond measures, as Dr. Mannon stated. We're a little short-staffed tonight, so I apologize on behalf of HMC not having representation here, but we'll have Don Rondeau fill in for them as we move through the slides. First and foremost, Mr. Rondeau, if you'd like to come up and speak to the progress at Jefferson Middle School.
Good evening. Jefferson Middle School, we're in the first phase there. It's a pretty simple phase. It's redoing the portables, so it's flooring, fire alarm, and paint. And that's a good thing because it lets us prepare for the second phase where we have to replace windows and long lead items. So far everything's going fine.
Long lead.
Like windows, they take 6 to 8 weeks to get.
To order, okay.
Yes.
What kind of flooring are we putting in the portables? Is it carpet, tile, do we know?
VCT.
By the way, the school can make that choice.
Okay.
So it's not universal.
And this is a multi-prime one, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But it's a district standard, if someone picks VCT,
Yes.
Carpet and VCT are both district standards.
okay.
So they have a choice which one they would like to have.
Can you tell me what, those are the carpet squares or those the tile squares?
Yes.
The
Tile,
thin,
okay.
asphalt tiles,
What I would call linoleum.
linoleum
You miss
squares.
the old 9x9s?
Yeah.
Those things last forever.
Yeah, well, the new ones do too. They're 12 by 12, but they last a long time.
They don't have the advantage of asbestos.
That's
Correct. Do I hit the button?
How are they going to say that word?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other questions for Jefferson?
Did we do future?
Thanks for filling in, Don. You'll see on the bottom of the slide as it relates to the future, the DSA approval of the gymnasium is to be determined. HMC has been board approved to design the gymnasiums, as you all well know, and approve the placement at Jefferson not once but twice. So we're anticipating actually a submittal here sometime October-ish, November, to be able to tag that scope of T&U onto the tail end of the Y&Z modernization. West High School and Richardson Middle School, also HMC projects, as you'll read, site committee meetings on the campuses, led by the principals at both sites, are complete. Site investigations are ongoing as we're moving from the design documents into the construction documents. You'll see that's in progress, and we are planning to present plans to you at the board meeting in November for your approval to submit. We did confirm the community meetings for both today. And Dr. Manning, if you help me there, I believe we have West High on
I don't have the schedule with me.
November 9th and Jefferson, I believe, on...
I don't have the schedule with me. So
Okay.
I'd rather not give out dates when we don't know for sure.
All right. And again, planning to submit the plans per your approval in November, and our tentative construction schedule will be reflective of the time spent in DSA. We anticipate June of 16 through September of 2018. On West High, keep in mind we will have the first auditorium go in along with that submission for approval, and we'll also have a gymnasium at Richardson Middle School.
And I just have a quick question. So that's West will go from June 16 through September 18?
That's what we're anticipating, Mrs. Reagan's, just,
And Torrance High School will not be completed by then, right, Dr. Mannon?
Torrance, the
So there will
the
be,
problem that we will have will be in the summer of 2016 and the summer of 2017,
okay, because we'll be doubled up.
because we'll have two high schools going on.
Got it, okay.
Just want to make sure I have that money.
You don't like to sleep anyhow, do you?
No, but I may not get any at all during that time.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
It's going to be a busy time.
we'll try to make it as painless as possible for you. Any other questions on either of those projects? Next up, Mr. Paul Westberg, representing Westberg and White, to speak to his projects.
Good evening, Torrance High School. Lots and lots of stuff going on. And for a while still, all the way through August of 2017, finding some interesting things over in the annex right now as we wash all the walls. And so we've had some concrete, just surface concrete kind of falling off. It's an old building, so we have our
Inside or
engineer out.
outside?
Nothing to be any concern seismic
It's
or anything.
exterior.
It's just
Exterior?
cosmetic.
So I thought that's what
Yeah,
we're doing.
just falling stuff. Dawn's power washers are very, very effective.
Noisy.
Otherwise, everything is moving along right on schedule as we're going through. Any questions at Torrance High School?
So there's nothing wrong with the concrete?
It's just old, you know.
So
that-
is it just a patch, or is there
Yes,
some
yeah,
reinforcement?
we'll come in and just kind of chip away anything that's loose, and then we put a heavy-duty structural epoxy method of patching it, and you'll never see it. Be painted right on over. That is a big, solid building, and it ain't going anywhere with anybody. So, but there again, Don grabbed us last Thursday and says, "Oh, we got a little thing we need to have you look at." So we did. Not terribly worried about
That's
it.
a poured in concrete place building, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid.
Civil defense shelter.
Is it?
Okay.
Used to be called liquid stone.
Liquid stone. Carr, Casimir. Casimir is under construction right now. Carr starts construction end of next week. So we're moving right along on the two of those things. And then, if you recall, Lincoln will be under construction this upcoming year. Next summer.
Can I ask a quick question about Casimir? So that parking lot will be out of commission the entire time for construction there?
That I have to ask Dawn.
Sorry. Are you talking about the basketball courts where the laydown area is, or?
Well, no, the front parking lot where the staff used to park in front, right near the front of the school. Yeah, where the trailer is, exactly.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't look like a parking lot right now.
You're right, and they are parking somewhere else. It's
Yes.
not going to be that way the whole project, but for the first two phases, I think it is.
Okay, because I had that question, thanks.
Yes.
And Tom?
Back to Don.
Thank you, sir. Measure T&U, progress reports from middle school gymnasiums, as stated earlier. Angel is not with us tonight. Again, the design is complete and board approved. We're working individually with each of the campuses now, basically for the internal color schemes and external color schemes, which obviously for the purposes of Jefferson and Casimir were part of the presentation. High school auditoriums, as was board approved, we're finalizing the design elements for the interior sound and lighting components. The committee for both of those scope items was unbelievably detailed, and they're not letting go until they get what they want, recognizing that it's their only time to take advantage of what the taxpayers have put in play. TUSD Aquatic Center, Mr. Westbrook.
Excuse me, Tom.
Sir?
Finished boards were taken to the high school principals. We know what west is, but finished boards were given to south and north.
Thank you, Dr. Manna. TUSD Aquatic Center, Paul Westberg, as well as the board, obviously, you approved that. We're in the process of moving from design documents into construction documents. Did you want to speak to that?
Not anymore.
Okay. with the anticipation of being able to submit sometime before the calendar year is out, and anticipation DSA approval sometime between April and June to be able to break ground next summer, knock on wood. Safety and security scope, Mr. Engwall, as you well know, is leading up that charge specific to the fencing, and Phase 1 is in progress. The Sherry High adult school portion has been complete, and what's current is South High and Cali Mayor. Any questions on that?
Say that again?
Currently, the fencing, the perimeter fencing and security fencing is going on at North High, South High and Cali Mayor.
Correct.
Sherry High is complete? You're looking at me like you have a question.
When you say Sherry, he means the entrance there on Crenshaw.
Yeah.
They went in and replaced some of that really bad-looking gate and some of that stuff. That's what's completed Sherry High.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, I have a question. So who's after Cali and South?
Who's after?
Yes.
Actually, we're moving to North High, and from North High, we're going to capture Madrona as well. And they've all been notified, and obviously, the outreach has been put into play.
Remember, there's a total of 15 schools in
Yeah,
Phase 1.
we're gonna work our way through.
Okay?
Okay?
Thank you.
And we can gladly provide you pictures and all that stuff anytime you request it.
I would love to see pictures.
Great. The before, during, and after is pretty impressive.
Good, then shoot them to Dr. Mann and he can forward them to us.
Ben King takes great pleasure and pride in that,
He does.
who is our boots on the ground superintendent.
Thank you.
We'll do that for you. Surveillance equipment, and again, Larry Engwall and Guidepost Solution, the board-approved consultant working hand in hand with Gil Mara, Dr. Stabler, and wrapping that all up to be put out to bid, and we'll present those bids to you sometime in October.
It's the incorrect date, it's 10/26.
Okay. Inclusive of that is the point of entry security system, which is now district standard, which will allow the staff on site to actually identify who's at the gate pressing a buzzer, and they can actually physically see who it is that's out there before allowing entry. 1, 2, 3 lockdown is in place. Dr. Stabler may assist me on this one in regards to the amount of percentage complete.
We're about halfway through on the completion of this project.
Why don't we explain what 1, 2, 3 lockdown is?
1, 2, 3 lockdown are devices that are put on at least one classroom door in every single classroom. And what you do, the teacher keeps the door locked, and then they use this device. It's kind of like an old-time hasp type thing. You move it over, and it keeps the door about so much ajar. Then if they have to go into lockdown, all they do is move that over, the door's locked.
Okay.
Every
So
single
so if you
classroom
had
will
a
have one.
key, you wouldn't be able to open the door.
Correct.
Correct.
And that way, having seen them on some of the site visits, they're kind of slick. The doors stay locked all day long, and all they got to do is slide a little lasp, and then the door becomes secure.
And you exit the door. and
Just-
you're going
just a
out the
crash
exit.
bar.
Just same as always, because it's on the inside, so it doesn't affect it at all.
I have a question. Dr. Stabler, were you able to fix that HVAC?
Yes, what she's talking about, some of our portables, and not all of our portables have them, some of them have the little, like you might have, like you see in certain sliding doors in resorts, where if the door's open, the air conditioner doesn't work, and so when the door's closed, the air conditioner works. Well, some of our portables have these, and so when the door is ajar this much, it's not making contact for the air conditioner to work. And we found that out at Burt Lynn, and then we found out we have some other classrooms around the district, and so what we're doing is going around, and for right now, just undoing the wire that activates that sensor. And then Jack Evans is looking at maybe finding something that will work in the place of the sensor that we have, so that when the door is set with the 1, 2, 3 lockdown in the lock, in the open position, so that the sensor for the air conditioner will still contact.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
So those things are being installed by Measures T&U and not our staff. the little lockdown thing.
Companies installing them, I got a pretty good deal. It included installation. So we bought the items, and then that included installation.
It's just being managed by Balfour Beatty.
Yes.
In trusted hands.
Very confident in those hands.
Thank you, sir. Next on the report EduLink system that I really can't speak to, if Gil will speak to that, please.
As you know, you approved this a couple weeks ago. Most of the configuration is done, so all we've got to do now, and Tammy Khan is working with the principal schedules to get them into our office to get them all trained to be used in the system. The attendance piece is already running for the high school, so that at least the absences, students who are absent are getting phoned, are being called at home, and the parents are being alerted. And we're also configuring that same alert system for absences, elementary all the way through. So it's moving right along.
Any questions for Gil?
And technology for Dr. Stowe.
At the, well, you know that we rolled out the laptops for all the teachers. Mr. Mara and his staff are working on the backbone or the infrastructure so that we can get the laptops to administrators and then the desktops to the clerical. So that'll happen in late October. Halloween, I think, is what we talked about today as target. And earlier in September, the board approved the order of 4,000 Chromebooks. These will be deployed out to school sites in carts of 36. We finalized the numbers today, and so the schools will be communicated with as to how many Chromebooks they're going to have to get in the hands of students. And so with all of this technology that we've been able to purchase, we're going to have a lot of really good things happening in the classroom, and we've stepped up teacher training to go along with that.
And these will be used for testing, obviously, but as well as the computer lab now comes to the kids, right?
Right, just as with the initial Chromebooks that we leased back in February of 2014, that they were for testing, but we expect them to be used all year long, and they are.
So, just somebody asked me, so I'll follow up. You know, a lot of the elementary schools had computer rooms of computers made probably before the turn of the century. The Chromebooks will basically take the place of that because they won't have a computer lab. They just grab a card and take it to the room. Yes, no, am I?
For the most part, yes. You know, it's really going to be a school decision whether or not they want to maintain computer labs. Our recommendation is that any additional monies that they get, that we recommend they look at portable devices so that the lab can come to the kids and they get more for their money as opposed to buying desktops for computer labs.
But I was at one school last week where they have a brand-new lab. They chose to do that at their school site, and the principal was actually showing me, it was actually donated, by the way, the funds were for specifically a computer lab. So they have a brand-new lab along with all the Chromebooks that are coming in.
But in a school without a donated computer lab, then if you're going to take the third or fourth or fifth or sixth graders and have a computer lab, you would roll the Chromebook card into the classroom and they would do it there.
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay.
That completes our update. Any other questions?
Comment. Just like to remind everyone exactly where we are. I did do this make the same kind of comments last Thursday with our bond oversight committee. Seems like a long time ago, especially Mr. Lee and Mrs. Reagans and Mr. Steffen and I were working toward measures Y and Z with all of those 45 meetings we had at one time, Mrs. Reagans. But we are very close now to being finished with Y and Z. When we submit for Richardson and West High School, it means that there are only 6 schools left. Those are the six elementary schools. As you know, those schools were in the best shape of all of our schools because we went from worst to best in terms of rating. With that, we probably will start planning somewhere near the end of this school year for the last 6 schools, but that's how close we are. We will have Lincoln, Edison, and Yukon under construction this summer, but those are all summer projects. They will begin the day after school lets out. They will be ready by the time school starts next year. Again, the reason why those schools we can do that at those schools is because the scope is less. By the time we get to the last 6, the scope is even more reduced by the fact of 2 things. One, their Measure R work was completed in some instances, and also there is simply just less scope at those last 6. So we are very close in terms of completing Y and Z, and completing Y and Z actually ahead of all of our schedules that we developed some 10 years ago, almost 10 years, because we did it in 2006 in terms of that type of work. So, we move on, and we have a lot of other projects, especially T&U projects, which were not mentioned. And many of you know, we have not discussed Phase 2 projects for T&U. These are all Phase 1. Phase 2 brings other pieces for our schools. At the high school level, it's auxiliary gyms and pieces of completely redoing lockers and some additional fencing pieces, and all of those things are needed at the high schools. At the elementary level, we'll be working on their play areas and redoing that. As Mrs. Reagan remembers, in Phase 2, we'll also be pulling out all of the old security containers, evacuation containers, security containers, and replacing all of those, along with redoing all of the tennis courts, especially at South and North. Excuse me. Those are not only necessitated by the bond language, but also by the fact that we're going to disrupt those courts due to the auditoriums with them. And finally, a piece that our high schools all worried about, and that was what do they do when we have to refinish the artificial surfaces on the tracks and the fields. And, the money is there now for our 4 high schools to redo that, probably within about 3 years based on our current wear. So a lot of other things that are very helpful to our schools will be coming in those next years to go along, but major Y and Z is going to be complete fairly soon and ahead of schedule of what we originally thought it would be in 2006.
And there is adequate funds to complete the balance of Y and Z.
There are, and, we continue, and I would remind folks and you that we will spend down to 0, at the end. And that's exactly where we should be with those pieces. But those schools, remember, have the less scope to them, and that's how we've built budgets for them.
Yeah, it's good because in the 90s bond, things got de-scoped, as they said, as they ran out of money because they didn't schedule it or budget it correctly. And that was kind of a huge disappointment for the community, and that was one of the challenges we faced in convincing the community to invest in Y and Z. And glad to say that all of the schools will get done, and all of the stuff we said we were going to do get done, and we were not going to use any money other than the Y and Z money that were approved to get it done, and it'll get done. What do you think? How much earlier than what was anticipated?
I think we're running somewhere between 12 months and 24 months.
Yeah, so we'll be anywhere from a year to 2 years early with it completed and on budget, so.
And there's one other piece that I only bring up because it made the ballot for November of 2016, and that's a state bond issue. We'll talk more about that. We want that state bond to pass because we are owed state matching funds, and we would like to have our dollars, quite frankly. Now, I've excluded that in terms of when I said we're going to go to zero. So if those are approved, then we may have to have another discussion.
Because the money's got to be used for the bond. It's not something we can put in the general fund.
You cannot use it for general fund. It's all capital projects.
Cool.
And some of that money could be used for TNU as well, correct, or not?
Probably could be, although right now, we don't believe we actually need to use it for TNU. But what we could do is to go back. Right now, I'll bring it up because the board asked me to do that as we were going through. I have one item. I'm sure I'm going to fill up more items, quite frankly, on the list to bring back to you if there is additional funds, which might be state funding. And that is the drainage rock box for Magruder Middle School. So that's the only one I have on the list.
I just wrote that down.
So I have that as a list, on the list. And there may be in the coming schools, there may be stuff we see that, we want to come back to or replenish in some way.
It's just, and one of the beauties, I'm sure I'm speaking for behalf of the board here, one of the beauties of this, being through this whole process, is I've been able to say irrevocably, is we doing it to the best standards possible. We're doing it, Don and I had a discussion about this 30 minutes ago. We're doing it to high standards. We're doing complete work. We're finishing it as it should be done. And it's been a luxurious position to be in, is, no, we'll fix that. If there's a problem and it's not right, we'll fix it. And that's...
And for the most part, we believe we can do that. However, we could run into something tomorrow that we might not be able to deal with. Right?
And that's fine. I mean, we've not bit off more than we can chew, and we have contingencies to survive what we have bit off, so.
Exactly, and I think I'm just going to say this, I believe we did it the right way, where we did our most expensive projects first. And now as we're
What the
moving...
economy looked like, yes.
Yes, and now we're moving into, when we get to the last six, they're the least expensive projects, because they're the least amount of scope on those school sites.
Okay.
Good comment. As we kind of wrapped up the last decade, I got to start thinking back. You deal with the minutia on a day-to-day, on a month-to-month, a couple times a month, and you kind of forget what it's gone on for the last decade in a larger scope. And I'm just absolutely amazed that the voters, after Measure R, they trusted us, they took a gamble. And it really appears it was a good gamble on their part. It really appears that staff that organized it, teachers that helped and staff that helped, make it function, and the planning that was done. And then we have, the other measures that passed because of the work we did now. It's really one hell of an accomplishment. And that has to go out to staff to say, and also to the contractors, that it is an amazing thing when you take a step back and you look at it. And there hasn't been, there have been a couple of things found here and a couple of things here a little bit, but no major incidents, no major, running over budgets, nothing like that. And so I just think everybody here that works on it on a day-to-day basis really should, get a round, not me or not the board per se, but get a round of, whatever it takes to say, we're almost done with this thing. And
I just want to make...
That's amazing.
Well, thank you, but I just want to make sure we make it out of Torrance High.
Well, there's the caveat. Okay. All right, the silver man in the room. Okay, very good. All right.
I have my
100-year-old
rosary beads in
building.
my pocket for that one.
All right.
Yep, it's a 100-year-old
Did everyone
building.
hear
We're
that?
gonna-
We're almost there.
Okay, good. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Good, thank you.
All right.